State ripoffs.
Of course, service and delivery are included at Frank Roberts. And remember, you can see the full line of Demencia only at Frank Roberts TV, along with a large selection of furniture and cabinets. Frank Roberts TV, 21st and Blair, a half mile from I-440.
WKRN-TV, Channel 2, your food for family station.
Good morning. I'm Charles Kuralt, and this is Sunday Morning. He would be 71 years old now if he hadn't been shot and killed in Dallas 25 years ago this week. Without belittling the courage with which men have died, these are his words, the words of John F. Kennedy. Without belittling the courage with which men have died, we should not forget those acts of courage with which men have lived. So that's what we're going to do this morning. Remember his life and meet some people whose lives he touched. And we will start with our cover story, to be reported this morning by David Culhane.
Dozens of people in this town of Williamson, West Virginia, can tell you a personal story about John Kennedy. They all still feel that he is, in fact, a member of their own family. Come with us later this Sunday morning and meet these people who believe that the spirit of John Kennedy is still alive in these hills, still carrying a message of hope in the long battle against poverty.
With Eugenia Zuckerman, we will visit some musicians whose young lives also were touched by the kindness of the young president. And that's an interesting story. John Kennedy was the last president who showed very much interest in music and the arts. He was the last president who did very much to inspire the young. Ask not what your country can do for you, he said, ask what you can do for your country. With Bob Pierpoint, we will revisit the Peace Corps.
The Peace Corps has served in almost 100 countries since it was founded. Peace Corps volunteers came to Guatemala in 1963. For 25 years, volunteers, 1,500 in all, have worked in this desperately poor country, helping people here achieve a better life. Later on Sunday morning, we'll meet some of today's volunteers, carrying on the Peace Corps tradition among the Mayan Indians of Guatemala.
25 years ago Tuesday, we heard that the president had been shot and wounded. We didn't know for long minutes how bad it was. Then a young reporter for CBS News came on the air and said the president was dead. Then there were more long minutes before this almost inconceivable news was confirmed by the hospital. The young reporter was Dan Rather. He will remember that day in Dallas for us later on this morning. The Kennedy family, his children and nephews and nieces, has long since grown into maturity, irrepressible, and it sometimes seems innumerable. The Kennedy clan is Bill Geist's subject this morning. John Leonard's subject is television, which gave us the bad news 25 years ago, and which may itself grow into maturity one of these days. We'll check this morning's weather map and thumb through the sports news and pick a milepost by which to remember last week. But first, here are the headlines for Sunday morning, the 20th of November. The General Accounting Office, a government watchdog agency, has issued a report saying that both higher taxes and a cut in Social Security and defense may be needed to cut the federal deficit. The agency suggests a 5% national sales tax on everything except food, housing, and medical care to raise money. No new taxes was, of course, George Bush's campaign pledge. Cristina Onassis died yesterday in Buenos Aires, Argentina, apparently of a heart attack. She was 37 years old, one of the world's richest women. She will be buried on the Greek island of Scorpios next to her father, the Greek shipping tycoon Aristotle Onassis, who became very well known to Americans, of course, when he married Jacqueline Kennedy in 1968. The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists has asked Andrei Sakharov to help set its famous doomsday clock, and he has agreed. The doomsday clock has gauged the degree of nuclear tension in the world since 1947. Right now, the clock is set at 6 minutes to midnight. Over the years, the minute hand has been as close as 2 minutes to midnight and as far away as 12.
See your Chrysler Plymouth dealer now and score big on a new Plymouth Voyager Gridiron Edition. Only a limited number of these special edition Voyagers are available and equipped to save you hundreds with automatic transmission, air conditioning, AM/FM stereo, room for 7 and more. Plus get $770 protection. All for a low factory discounted sticker price of just $14,151. So be a hero. Drive home a Plymouth Voyager Gridiron Edition today.
Hanson Chrysler Plymouth, 11th and Charlotte.
Do I have a VCR? Boy, do I have a VCR. I bought this one, but it didn't have remote control. So I bought this one, but the salesman didn't tell me about slow motion. And then I got one in stereo, but it wasn't broadcast.
At Circuit City, our professional sales counselors are trained to ask the right questions, give the right advice, and make sure you get the product that's right for you.
Then I decided to buy a video camera. I should have gone to Circuit City.
Circuit City, the intelligent choice.
The people at Mayo Tire, your full-service auto center, are experts in brake, alignment, and exhaust systems. But did you know that they'll install everything from sunroofs to burglar alarms, mufflers to upholstery? And there's more. Cellular phones from Mayo Mobility are backed by the Bell South Mobility System. This guarantees you the quality that only Bell South Mobility can provide, with 24-hour customer service to meet your every need. Bell South Mobility, providing service in over 350 cities. It's just another reason to put your car in the hands of the experts at Mayo Tire.
It's Office Value Days with truly unbelievable savings from the Instant Office program of McQuitty Office Designers. You want savings? Here's 2 incredible values from Fairfield Chair Company. Get this leather armchair for an unbelievable $329, or get the leather swivel chair for only $389. Only during Office Value Days. Don't miss Office Value Days. Only with the Instant Office program of McQuitty Office Designers.
Steffi Graff does not lose to Pam Shriver at tennis. She hadn't lost anybody in 46 straight matches. So the tennis news of the morning is that yesterday in the Virginia Slims Championship at Madison Square Garden, Steffi Graff lost to Pam Shriver. 6-3, 7-6, 7-5 was the score. This was match point. Steffi Graff serving.
She misses it.
Steffi had the flu, by the way. Pam Shriver had the match. The surprise winner plays Gabriella Sabatini today for the $125,000 first prize. College football is almost all sorted out now. Top-ranked Notre Dame beat Penn State 21-3 with plays like this one.
He looks in that direction. He's going deep in the direction of Ismail.
Notre Dame is undefeated. Penn State suffers its first losing season in 50 years. Notre Dame goes to the Fiesta Bowl against West Virginia, which completed its first ever perfect season yesterday by walloping Syracuse. Southern California, ranked number 2 in the nation, beat UCLA 31-22. Of course, this is the game in California. Featured a nifty touchdown run by the Trojans' Eric Althalter. By winning this game, Southern Cal set up what is really the game next weekend, undefeated Southern Cal versus undefeated Notre Dame for the national championship next Saturday. And suddenly it's winter. It is, at least in the northern plains and upper Middle West. Look at this. 20-degree temperatures for a high today in parts of Minnesota and North Dakota. 40s for the southern and central plains, where a few inches of snow fell yesterday and during the night. It'll be warmer than that, both in the east and in the far west. Here in the northeast, we are having a heavy soaking rain this morning, and the wind may be turning umbrellas inside out as the rain continues all day. Strong thunderstorms will rake across the southeast today. A bad one, maybe it was a tornado, did a lot of damage in western Alabama in the middle of the night. We've drawn in a few snowflakes in the gray overcast that will blanket the upper Midwest and central Great Lakes today. A little light rain and snow today in the northwest. By tomorrow afternoon, most of the east will have dried out. Flurries in the far northeast. A possible thunderstorm far to the south in Florida tomorrow. A very powerful storm, which right now is up in the Gulf of Alaska, will come booming into Washington and Oregon tomorrow with rain and snow and very high wind. A clement day elsewhere tomorrow. A tornado watch is in effect for southeastern Alabama and the Florida Panhandle right now. So from Mobile to Tallahassee, keep a weather eye out. West Virginia is not known for glittering cities and fashionable neighborhoods. It's known for mountains and coal and hardworking people and a good football team, as we have just heard. When you look at a map of the United States, it's easy to overlook West Virginia, tucked into the crook of Virginia's bended arm. Among those who often overlook it are candidates for president, since it has only 6 electoral votes. John F. Kennedy did not overlook West Virginia. And that is the subject of our cover story, reported this morning by David Culhane.
What we know of West Virginia is that coal is torn from its heart and delivered daily to the world. What we know of West Virginia is that nestled in the beauty of its hills is a flinty people, often too proud to reveal the needs of chronic poverty. But know this, too, about West Virginia, that a generation ago, this state and its people went through a transforming experience that changed them all. And even now, the spirit of that change is alive in these hills.
If a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich.
Kennedy country, absolutely, absolutely. John Kennedy was the greatest thing that happened to the state of West Virginia and Domingo County to this day.
He was our boy. And we felt like with him, we just knew in our bones that he was a winner.
When he came down, it was just like he probably had lived next door, you know, for the last 20 years.
Do you remember when you first met him? I mean, is that something that's in your mind?
Well, sure. You never forget something like that. I mean, that's a once-in-a-lifetime situation, I imagine.
Many people have forgotten that in 1960, all the experts pointed out that no Catholic had ever been president and forecast that Catholic Kennedy could not make it that year.
We will have a chance to see whether there is going to be an opportunity to discuss the serious issues facing the United States in a very dangerous and trying time. I don't happen to believe that one of those serious issues is where I go to church on Sunday.
Kennedy won several primaries around the country. Then the ultimate test concerning his religion took place in the Bible Belt Protestant state of West Virginia.
I came to the state of West Virginia, which has fewer numbers of my co-religionists than any state in the Union. I would not have come here if I didn't feel that I was going to get complete opportunity to run for office as a fellow American in this state. I would not run for it if in any way I didn't feel that I could do the job.
10 days before the vote, Hubert Humphrey was leading in the polls by a crushing 60 to 40%.
Senator John F. Kennedy has
The
said...
Kennedy forces knew that a loss in West Virginia would virtually end his candidacy. Every resource was thrown into the battle, including the payment of money to election day workers, a common practice in the state. Critics charged that this amounted to buying votes. Kennedy supporters insisted that it was a legitimate local custom.
May 10th, vote for you. Vote Kennedy.
An amazing victory was won.
The people of West Virginia gave me their support in this primary by a generous majority. I want to express my great thanks to them. This is a great state.
Finally, John Kennedy and West Virginia belonged to each other.
They did something important in history. They recognized him. They did not turn away from him.
Charles Peters, one of Kennedy's campaign managers in West Virginia, thinks that the people of the state were transformed by their encounter with John Kennedy.
In a people that had so few apparent causes for pride, this was a wonderful thing for them. We did this. We decided the 1960 election. We decided who was going to be president of the United States in 1960. And they know that. They did.
And Peters also believes that John Kennedy was transformed, that in West Virginia he came to understand in his heart the meaning of poverty.
I think incredible change happened to him in that month, and I think he came out of that campaign understanding and caring.
But after Kennedy came here and left, that put us on the map, the good and the bad. I mean, it was...
People in West Virginia still talk about John Kennedy.
Yeah, my husband's a Baptist minister, but I voted for Kennedy.
He told me that when he was in Congress, Kennedy told him to fast read.
I read in the papers that Kennedy invented poverty when he came to Mingo County. He said that. It was in the paper.
John Moses was a young campaign worker in Williamson, West Virginia in 1960. Today, he is a county magistrate, carrying forward in his own way the impulse for public service that he saw in John Kennedy.
But he had an aide right at his shoulder taking notes. If someone came up to him and addressed the problem to him, he wanted to remember that. He wanted to know where he heard it, and I would say that probably the record would prove that after he was elected and went to the White House, that he did refer to his notes, because it all came together for us and was coming together much, much more at the time of the assassination.
We had to, you see, we had to sign printed up, welcome President Kennedy.
Claude Varney, a food chain executive who campaigned for Kennedy, says the results of his presidency can still be seen in West Virginia.
He brought the food stamps, not that we're not pushing the welfare thing, but to think about it. And then he started the lunch program, the milk break. You know, we had a surplus of milk and keeping the kids fed and so forth. And then the ARC, which is Appalachian Regional Commission, and it built roads, water, sewage. He felt like wherever the need was, it didn't matter whether they called him a liberal or a conservative or what, he was sensitive to the need.
I never will forget, he used my first name. He didn't say Sergeant, he said Rossi.
Yeah.
And
very natural.
Very natural, is it? He made me feel like he had known me for 20 years, right. And I had just met him.
In 1960, Rossi Butchie was a young police officer in Williamson, West Virginia.
They kept telling me, they said, Rossi, he's behind schedule, let's get him out of here. So Jack Kennedy asked me, was there a black section in this town? And I said, yes. So he said, well, I want to go through it. So we drove up the street, made a left turn, come down the next block, and that was the black section at that time.
Yeah.
They told me, his staff told me not to stop the car. I was in the lead car, he was in the next car.
Yeah.
As I looked through my rear view mirror, he was stopped and was out in the middle of the street, shaking hands with all those people.
So he was going to do it?
He was going to do it anyway.
The people of West Virginia are not always comfortable with some of the myth-making about Kennedy. They would rather tell you about the real, concrete ways that their lives were changed.
She's excited at the idea of joining something like the Peace Corps, excited at the idea of public service.
Charles Peters went on from the campaign to the Peace Corps. He's now an influential magazine editor in Washington.
I can remember how I felt walking to work every morning in 1961 as I went down the street to Connecticut Avenue to the Peace Corps office. I felt excited. I felt I was doing something important for my country, and I was very proud of it.
In the Peace Corps, Charlie Peters met another young man who shared the sense of mission about poverty. Peters urged him to go to West Virginia. His name was J. Rockefeller.
There's a classic kind of early 60s experience when there was so much hope from the Kennedy years, and the rhetoric was that government was good and that public service was important, that you could make a difference, and that work was honorable when you did it. other than for yourself. And, you know, I heard that, but I had no idea I was going to stay in West Virginia.
J. Rockefeller did stay. He made these photographs during his years as a community organizer.
You know, there was another world out there, there was another America out there, and that we had a responsibility to do something about it. And it wasn't sort of a moral outrage. There wasn't anything very pompous about it. It was exciting and thrilling and wonderful.
And practical. I mean,
And
we
practical,
can do this.
but it was also an adventure. But then the adventure kept turning into something serious.
Later, he served as a state legislator and as governor. Now he represents West Virginia in the United States Senate. The poverty that John Kennedy found in West Virginia is still there. There was no easy answer then, there is none now. But know this about the people of West Virginia, that once they met a man who said that they could begin to do something about their problems, and that he would help them. They have not forgotten that man or his message.
And it's very real. It's very real. And I'm not sure people can articulate why, but I think it's because here was a president who knew we were here, who loved us, who said so publicly, who said good things about West Virginia. John F. Kennedy was moved by what he saw in West Virginia.
I think each of us has to try to feel that it's up to him to create that spirit in the country. We can't wait for another John Kennedy. We have to create that spirit ourselves.
I need a moment in my day.
Yes, sir. I've got a Tuesday to
Take myself at
Yes, sir.
ease.
Thank you.
And nothing's like being invisible, and nothing's better for seeing the forest for the trees. Than the good to the last drop feeling of Maxwell House, only Maxwell House. That's the good to the last drop feeling of Maxwell House and me.
Uncle Alex, this store's a lot bigger than your old one. You betcha. More parts, bigger inventory. Maybe you should get an IBM PS2.
Huh, what do you want me to do, throw out my old PC?
They'll work together.
And my PC software?
It'll run it and a lot faster.
You're kidding. You know, I could use extra capacity. Maybe I should get a PS2.
Congratulations.
You didn't.
I did. The Personal System 2, part of the bigger picture for your growing business from IBM.
Now, what about the Stanton judgment? Tough case.
We won it.
Nice work.
I had a great team.
Bet you should get some great raise, too. Our next junior partner should be getting some good financial counsel. Call my Prue Bates broker.
Rock solid.
At Prudential Bates, rock solid means an all-star team behind you, armed with the strength and resources to win.
So, big gun make you a partner yet? Bang.
Prudential Bates Securities, rock solid, market-wise.
That'll be a charge.
We interrupt this purchase for a reminder.
Don't forget, Santa.
'Tis the season to be choosy.
That's it.
So choose the card that actually pays you cash back for every charge. The Discover card.
That's a great idea.
You sure know how to pick them. It pays to Discover, the card that pays you back.
25 years ago last week, these little items were introduced to America. Not telephones. Telephones with buttons. Last week, the touch-tone telephone turned 25. That is a milepost. We still talk about dialing a telephone number. The next generation won't know what we were talking about. Not so many of us dial anymore. We push. These buttons led to many other buttons on microwave ovens and VCRs and washing machines and answering machines. Now we withdraw money from the bank by pushing buttons. We publish newspapers by pushing buttons. What is the figure of speech for Armageddon? The finger on the nuclear button. All these buttons beep probably even the nuclear one. If you push the right buttons, the beeps will play you a touch-tone tune. Happy birthday to the touch-tone telephone, which turned us into a push-button society. Of course, we also push buttons to turn on television sets, and that leads us to John Leonard and back to our Kennedy theme. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Charles. I'm going to begin by being obvious. By now, it's conventional wisdom, almost a piety, that John F. Kennedy was our first television president, and that his death in Dallas changed the way we experience ourselves as a nation, the way we mourn, and the way we celebrate. Except for his first debate with Richard Nixon, he probably wouldn't have been elected. Without his confident, witty, sexy performances at televised press conferences, and all those photo opportunities in Paris, Vienna, and Berlin, there'd have never been a Camelot. His murder sent us not to our church or synagogue or Union Hall or Civic Center, but to our TV set. It sometimes seems we've stayed there ever since, huddled like refugees, like displaced persons, as history came down on us. We didn't know what to do with our emotions in November 1963, and so we gave them to Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago.
These films were taken slightly less than an hour and a half before President Kennedy was shot and killed in a motorcade in downtown Dallas.
Later on, very much in need of something like a national pep rally, a Roman circus, we would go to the Super Bowl by staying home in the tens of millions. Touchdown. Instead of looking at the sky, we looked at our television sets when a man named Armstrong landed on the moon.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
By the time of Watergate, when it seemed that the President of the United States, alone in a darkened wing of the White House, was listening to himself on tape, like some weird play by Samuel Beckett, we looked to Sam Ervin on television to make it all right again, like Father Knows Best.
Well, don't you agree with me that it has been far more appropriate to have kept this money in the bank rather than in the White House?
And when a little girl named Jessica McClure fell down a well in Texas, what we did in front of our sets was pray.
Here she comes. There's clapping.
On TV, we've stared at other assassinations, another Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr., and other disasters like the Challenger, and other triumphs like the Pope in America, and arms treaties, and Academy Awards. And most of us who opinionize about TV tend to think of it, since John F. Kennedy, as a kind of cement for the cracks in the social order. It's an antiseptic, a way of binding up the wounds until they heal. Americans move around a lot, but wherever we go, we see the same thing. It's as if, in a nomadic culture, the TV screens the windshield on our mobile home, and the nation is a motel. According to the Bill of Rights, we are supposed to petition Congress for redress of grievance. But civil rights and anti-war protesters petitioned the networks instead, as if Cronkite were Captain Kirk of the Starship Enterprise. If television's a substitute for church and Congress, it's also a substitute for lots of other things. There are so many happy families on the sitcoms, we don't need one of our own, or else there's divorce court. Who needs babysitters if we've got cartoons? Or public schools if we've got Sesame Street? Who needs psychotherapy if we've got Phil and Oprah? Who needs national health insurance if we've got Disease of the Month made for TV movies? Well, I have my doubts. I try hard to celebrate, but it tastes a bit like aspirin. I grieve, but there's nothing to hold on to. Mostly, watching television, we are alone. And this electronic community is a community of loners, of disbelievers, of agnostics about reality itself. It occurs to me I never saw John Kennedy in person. He lived and died on television, like a magic act. Did television bind up our wounds or paper them over? Were we healed, or were we, just for a while, sedated?
Somebody ordered a knish. Where are you?
No, I haven't got
Dad, get it out. Service, please.
At the 2nd Avenue Deli in Manhattan, they recently added something new to the menu.
On the bag.
The phone number of their Murata fax machine.
Double bags, 2 breakfast steaks, 1 hot.
The guys say that before they bought the Murata, things were pretty hectic behind the counter.
Just a second, darling. Don't you see I'm busy?
Murata fax machines.
Up to $1,000 cash back on a Subaru is worth more because Subaru's XT6 has the same engine design found in a Ferrari. Because the Subaru Justy is the lowest priced 4-wheel drive passenger car in America. Up to $1,000 cash back from Subaru means a great deal on a great car.
Feel your oats. Post. Oats. Feel your oats with new Post Oat Flakes. Golden toasted flakes with whole grain oat nutrition and whole grain oat taste. Feel your oats with new Post Oat Flakes.
Welcome to a room unlike any you've ever seen. A room where the light comes on automatically when you enter, then goes off when you leave. Where you never have to flip a switch, pull a string, or wish you had an extra hand. Every room could be this convenient if you add a First Alert sensor switch. It automatically turns the lights in any room on and off. Sensor switch from First Alert. Isn't there room for one in your home? Look for the complete sensor switch line.
It's a Radio Shack Merry Christmas.
This Christmas, I'm going to make sure my children stay in touch all year. I gave each of them Radio Shack sale price one-piece mini phone. Trim design, and it comes with a 13-foot cord, a mute button, and a convenient redial button. And best of all, it was on sale for only $12.95. I even bought one for myself. Do you think they'll get the hint? Hello? Why, son, what a surprise!
The mini phone on sale for $12.95, only at Radio Shack.
It's Office Value Days with truly unbelievable savings from the Instant Office program of McQuitty Office Designers. Can you believe it? National Office Furniture is now offering this contemporary executive conference desk for just $359. Only $359 for a desk that will make any office a real showcase. Don't miss Office Value Days, only with the Instant Office program of McQuitty Office Designers.
Of all the people on this planet, we Americans enjoy a unique distinction. Despite the dry weather that has hurt our farmlands, we spend only 14% of our income on food. That's less than virtually anyone else spends in the free world. And because we spend less on food, we have more money for the little luxuries of life. Brought to you on behalf of the American farmer by the makers of Dual Herbicide.
Lincoln Town Car. It's still the roomiest luxury car sold in America. And that makes it perfect for those really long drives. Town Car Mark 7 and Continental. Lincoln, what a luxury car should be.
This is WKRM, Channel 2, Nashville.
It's Sunday morning on CBS, and here again is Charles Kuralt.
When power leads man toward arrogance, poetry reminds him of his limitations. That's quoting John Kennedy again. Eugenia Zuckerman is about to report to us on the Kennedy artistic legacy. Some artists in this country today very well remember John F. Kennedy.
I see little of more importance to the future of our country and our civilization than full recognition of the place of the artist. If art is to nourish the roots of our culture, society must set the artist free to follow his vision wherever it takes him.
President Kennedy made clear his belief in the importance of art and the artist to society from his first day in office.
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy.
Who can forget poet Robert Frost on Inauguration Day?
Summoning artists to participate
Or the state dinner at which cellist Pablo Casals made his first appearance at the White House in more than 50 years. That occasion was inspiring to young artists around the country.
As a cellist, I was very much taken by the fact that he had been chosen to be at the White House. And it made one feel that culture was not a dirty word, and that doing something artistic was something that was worthy of notice.
Today, Katharina Mainz is a cellist with the Cleveland Orchestra. She remembers Casals' visit, but she remembers even more vividly something that happened the next year. Her appearance at the White House with the Interlochen Music Camp Orchestra when she was only 17 years old.
It made us feel that what we were doing was important, was being recognized and was important.
Katharina wrote to her parents a few days later.
We got to the White House to find a metal shell built for us in the middle of the lawn with about 500 chairs for an audience. It was already about 80 degrees. We rehearsed, and at 10:30 started Hail to the Chief, and the president walked out to the stage. Boy, is he handsome. His face is tan and hair bleached by the sun. Our audience was handicapped children, poor children, and various aides.
The matter is that success comes in music or in the arts like success comes in every other form of human endeavor, by hard work, by discipline, over a long period of time.
Well, the presidency had not concentrated on the arts before the Kennedys came, and I think that they felt that this is one of the things they could do for the country. Young musicians, too, had not been encouraged, young dancers. There was a lot of youth out there waiting to be encouraged. And I think
Letitia Baldridge was social secretary to the White House. She worked closely with Mrs. Kennedy on planning the musical events.
And so she thought, well, if we're having all of these great and famous performers here, why not have the young ones, too, the young amateurs who need encouragement? So she started a series of youth concerts, and they came from all over America.
Ansgarius Aylward is assistant concertmaster of the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. He was a 15-year-old student when he performed with the Greater Boston Youth Symphony at the Kennedy White House.
It elevated our status. I mean, we felt more important. From what he said, we began to look from outside, not just from our parents and our neighbors saying, oh, bravo, bravo, nice job. Now we felt that it was of more universal import, what we were doing.
It made people say to themselves, well, my son doesn't have to be a football player. If he's a great pianist, that's pretty good, too.
One before G?
I mean, it really woke America up, the importance of the arts.
Sustain. That's up to you.
And now Ansgarius Aylward passes that message on to the youth orchestra he conducts in Buffalo.
I think what I do is try to model what I do with my kids now upon what I felt happened to me in my experiences with my youth orchestra.
Okay, let's do that again. Okay, this time take it easy, okay? You got an open string, you're on top, but these guys have the bum-bum-bum-bum, so let them through. Can I have this?
And I want to, today, in paying tribute to these musicians, to bring to our public mind all the others across this country who themselves are playing and living music.
Then came the most exciting part. We started the tour of the White House after the concert,
Katharina Mines remembered in that letter home to her parents more than 25 years ago how welcome she felt.
They served us a buffet lunch in the state dining room, and we could go anywhere to eat. My friend and I ate in the East Room. This was the part of the trip that was most meaningful to me. I'll never think of the White House as a cold, severe figurehead, but as a warm, gracious, understanding home of the nation. I don't know if you wanted to speak of where I was when he died or anything like that, but
well, you could tell us that.
Right. I was in a theory class, and before the theory class, he had been shot and was still alive, and after the theory class, he was dead. And for all the tears that people shed, it felt very personal to me. And 5 years later, I didn't think I'd do this. I went upstairs to the practice room and I got my cello out. And I played the 4 eulogy just for myself. Because I had been that far from him for 15 minutes of my life.
You've got this all wrong. You want to make news of the cereal today, you need a gimmick. Putting a whole banana inside a little bran biscuit, stuff like that. These are just flakes. I don't think I've tasted anything like it. Simple, light, it's really very good. Well, how about that? A cereal that doesn't need a gimmick.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes.
Corn Flakes?
Taste them again for the first time.
At 16 Bedford Street, the toast is with fine crystal. On Astor Lane, a powerful telescope probes the night sky. And over on Shore Road, a new TV is entertaining the Kagans. All these things were bought with Visa Gold, which protects them against loss, theft, damage, and doubles the manufacturer's warranty. And with Visa Gold, you can get this protection at nearly 3 times as many places as American Express. Visa Gold, it's everywhere you want to be.
Which fruit has the most fiber per serving? This one, the prune. Prunes, the high-fiber fruit.
How can anyone offer me a computer solution without seeing my business first? That's why we're talking to Microage. Instead of trying to sell me something off the shelf, they're coming here to look at my computer needs firsthand.
Microage, as close as the telephone.
This is the look of opportunity.
The look of a leader, the look of fantastic Sam's.
Your opportunity to own a franchise with #1, Fantastic Sam's. The hair cutter that's gone from 307 stores just 4 years ago to over 2,017 today. Be a part of it. Franchises now available. Call
1-800-621-5307. Financing available.
Bill Geist's subject this morning is the famously large and active Kennedy family.
Large is right, Charles. After President Kennedy's death, Robert Kennedy gathered the family and told them that trouble will never defeat the Kennedys because there's more of us than there is of it.
During the Kennedy years, a family, a real family, with young, attractive parents and 2 little children lived in the White House. This is not a fairy tale. John, as he was known to the world, was the first child born to an American president since Grover Cleveland in 1893. He and his sister Caroline always seemed to be underfoot, playing games in the Oval Office and toddling into press conferences.
The purpose would be to represent the secretary.
Well, good evening. How are you?
And as impossible as it may seem today, sometimes the President of the United States could actually be seen just driving his family around in a convertible. One of the great legacies of the Kennedy years is the Kennedy children, the next generation. Just look at them all. About 20 of the 29 grandchildren of Joe and Rose Kennedy are pictured here with President Kennedy at the family compound in Hyannisport, where the children had daily schedules of sailing, riding, swimming, and discussing current events. Joe Kennedy instilled his dream to be President of the United States in his children and groomed them like thoroughbreds. And what a track record. 3 became U.S. senators, 1 was president.
Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans.
The one everyone seems to have an eye on at the moment is 27-year-old John F. Kennedy, Jr., who made his political debut at the Democratic Convention, introducing Uncle Ted and prompting torrential publicity.
He has shown that our hope is not lost idealism, but a realistic possibility.
Another of the grandchildren, Joe Kennedy, Robert's oldest son, is already in Congress.
In either bailout plan.
The day his Uncle Jack was buried in 1963, 11-year-old Joe received a letter from his father, then the Attorney General, stating that as the eldest of the male grandchildren, Joe had a responsibility to carry on. Robert's oldest child, Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, ventured down to Maryland to run for Congress and lost in her first attempt, but plans to run again.
You know, with all this enthusiasm, I wonder why we lost.
Patrick Kennedy, Ted Kennedy's youngest, is off to a fast start. Just 21 years old and a sophomore at Providence College, Patrick was elected this month to the Rhode Island State Assembly. 27-year-old Ted Jr. ran his father's re-election campaign this year and is widely rumored as a candidate for lieutenant governor of Massachusetts. In all, 12 of the young Kennedys may soon be running for public offices ranging from the Boston City Council to the United States Congress. Mrs. Kennedy? This could actually result in a kind of political gridlock. A Kennedy jam, if you will, with not enough public offices, particularly in Massachusetts, to go around. Already, Uncle Ted takes a lot of razzing from his ambitious nephews about vacating his Senate seat to clear the way for the next wave of Kennedys.
My husband and I have always led active lives together, but when we found out I had cataracts, my bubble burst. I thought he'd be leading me around instead of dancing with me. I was wrong. I had surgery at the Aerosmith Eye Institute and went home the same day. No hospital, and they even provided free transportation. Now I really feel like dancing.
Call the Aerosmith Eye Institute in Nashville for a cataract checkup. You'll see the difference in our care.
Keep the memories flowing, melt away the miles. You can hear the laughter, you can almost see the smiles. Oh, hello everyone, you've got so much to tell. Hello everyone, South Central Bell.
Isn't there someone special you'd like to call?
first feeling is the one you go with. I remember when we met. It felt good. Real good. Yeah, real good.
Well, I feel this way, better than it's ever been before. I know it's you.
Nothing makes you feel as good as fine jewelry from America's leading jewelers, Service Merchandise.
The people at Mayo Tire, your full-service auto center, are experts in brake, alignment, and exhaust systems. But did you know that they'll install everything from sunroofs to burglar alarms, mufflers to upholstery? And there's more. Cellular phones from Mayo Mobility are backed by the Bell South Mobility System. This guarantees you the quality that only Bell South Mobility can provide, with 24-hour customer service to meet your every need. Bell South Mobility, providing service in over 350 cities. It's just another reason to put your car in the hands of the experts at Mayo Tire.
Kennedy could inspire the young. He still can. Luke Ives Pontefel wasn't even born when Kennedy was killed 25 years ago, but the approach of this sad anniversary inspired him to publish a book. This book, an essay about John F. Kennedy. All the copies are already sold. Luke Pontefel printed the book himself, and it's a beautiful example of publishing. This is a story about valuable bookmaking. But a book is finally only as valuable as the words inside it.
He glittered when he lived, and the whole world grieved when he died. In the years since, his memory has undergone vicissitude. Grief nourishes myth. The slain hero, robbed of fulfillment by tragic fate, is the stuff of legend.
The essay is called JFK Remembered. The author is historian Arthur Schlesinger, Jr.
His contagious optimism gave his country hope that with sufficient ingenuity, steadfastness, and goodwill, we could meet our responsibilities. He was sure that there was a great reservoir of idealism, especially among the young, a selfless desire to help the poor and the powerless.
A few weeks ago, there was a party at the Rizzoli bookstore in New York honoring the publication of JFK Remembered. There were Kennedys there, and friends of the Kennedys.
Beautiful printer.
Beautiful, and the paper.
Did you meet the young kid who's the public of the printer?
Yes. He's a friend of my daughter Amanda.
This is the printer. This is Luke Pontefel. John Bradley.
Luke Ives Pontefel, 20 years old, is a junior at Harvard and a lover of books, especially of beautiful books.
I've always been interested in books and in the way they're made, beautiful bindings, beautiful printing. The reason I like to do the letterpress printing is that you have a technique where you can create very beautiful results, which is the way things were printed universally from Gutenberg's time through the 30s, 40s, 50s, and then things started to change and offset printing came on. And what you lose is the richness of the letters, the spacing of the letters.
Modern printing methods are nowhere near good enough for Luke Pontefel. He printed the 52-page Schlesinger essay in a shop near his parents' summer home in West Stockbridge, Massachusetts. He fed sheets of fine French rag paper one by one into a splendid old letterpress. He worked all summer, often 7 days a week.
You're creating a book that has definitely a physical quality. The book itself supports the text, and adds to the pleasure of reading it, I hope. What's exciting for me about the printing these books is that I'm able to create a beautiful sort of backdrop for the text and a way to highlight the author's ideas.
His irreverence toward conventional ideas and institutions provoked a discharge of critical energy throughout American society. He came to be loved in the black community and was the first president since FDR with anything to say to the young. In other lands, he was seen as a carrier of American idealism and a friend of humanity. For a moment, he made politics seem in truth, in the phrase he cherished from John Buchan's Pilgrim's Way, the greatest and most honorable adventure.
About a year ago, I wrote a letter to Mr. Schlesinger asking if he had a short reminiscence that I could print. I realized that it was the 25th anniversary of JFK's death, and felt that that would be a subject that I would want to create a book to highlight.
Arthur Schlesinger agreed. The historian and the student were in business. But it was a long-distance partnership. They communicated by telephone and by mail.
So they'll be bound in the next couple of weeks, will they?
Yeah. As soon as I get this sheet to him, he's already folding. And then when I get this sheet to him with the signature, then he'll fold
The author and the printer finally met face-to-face for the first time in September when Luke Pontefel brought galleys to show his famous collaborator.
Removed, put on a flat surface, and then put somewhere else because otherwise it will imprint right onto the one.
And Arthur Schlesinger signed each of the 425 copies of JFK Remembered.
Terrific. That writes smoothly on the paper for you, yeah? And there are the thinner ones.
Well, I suppose that I would rather wish that we marked the Kennedy's birthday rather than the day of his death. And when the day of his death, this anniversary comes around, one always still feels that mixture of grief, incredulity, and shame. Shame for the country with which one first heard the news 25 years ago.
I haven't experienced a president like him in my lifetime. The way he was able to inspire people, the way he was able to motivate people in a direction that was truly good. Today, I don't think you'd find Reagan asking, you know, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
The present mood, too, will pass. Kennedy's commitment to politics as the greatest and most honorable adventure touched and formed a generation of young men and women in the 1960s. They were moved by his aspirations and shaped by his ideals. Their day is still to come. When it comes, and come it will, Kennedy, seen from the crest of the next wave, will, I believe, assume his true proportions as a humane and creative political leader.
Local news is not just a Monday through Friday business. At Channel 2 News, we make it our business to bring you the best weekend coverage with Lauren Terry and John Clark. Join Channel 2 News weekends at 5 and 10. We're working harder to be your choice for news.
People in America always say there are no free lunches, right? Wrong. I just ordered Viacom's basic cable, and Viacom gave me the installation free.
There you go, Mr. Wickens. No charge.
Free! So now I get 29 channels of great entertainment every day for just $15.95 a month. We all have to watch our pennies. Free popcorn, too. Who says there are no free lunches?
Installation free for all from Viacom.
Toyota Fest is here at Beaman Toyota with huge savings on every 89 Toyota in stock. Like 89 Camrys from $11,899. Drive it, 0 down, $194 a month. 89 Corollas, $92.88. Drive it, 0 down, $157 a month. 89 Toyota trucks, $81.99. Drive it, 0 down, $147 a month. For huge savings on 89s, Toyota Fest is here at Beaman Toyota on Broadway, downtown.
This is WKRN, Channel 2, Nashville.
If you thought you had to give up comfort to get a close shave, Norelco says, think again. Their revolutionary shaving system shaves skin close in a way that's incredibly comfortable. As the hair enters the chamber, the patented lift and cut system lifts each hair and holds it a split second before a blade cuts it, so it's possible to shave skin close without the blades even touching the skin. The lift and cut shaving system from Norelco. We made close comfortable.
Hot Nestle Quick with real milk, 'cause a little warmth goes a long way.
Up to $1,000 cash back on a Subaru is worth more because Subaru has the best-selling import wagon in America. Because the Subaru Justy is the lowest-priced four-wheel drive passenger car in America. Up to $1,000 cash back from Subaru means a great deal on a great car.
After you've produced the yearly report in record time, after you've made order out of paperwork chaos, after you've turned the slideshow into a colorful part of your winning proposal, and seen productivity become top priority, maybe after all that you'll know why Canon is the most popular copier in America. From personal to color laser copying, the choice is Canon. Call toll-free 1-800-OK-CANON.
It's a Radio Shack Merry Christmas.
Hurry, hurry! You gotta see Toyland.
Radio Shack's Christmas Toyland means battery-operated toys for all ages. Like a new speed loop race with magnetized cars that stay on the track. Or this easy-to-play 13-key sing-along rock guitar complete with its own microphone. Get rolling with this remote-controlled super skate.
Radio Shack has all the toys on their Christmas list.
Battery-operated toys from $259, only at Radio Shack.
It's Sunday morning on CBS, and here again is Charles Kuralt.
All of us in this line of work show up at journalism schools from time to time to shoot the breeze with students. When the question of good reporting of a very important story under great pressure comes up, I always cite the job that was done by a young CBS News reporter in Dallas on the day of President Kennedy's assassination. It's the best such job I've ever seen. The young reporter stayed with CBS News. He's still in the field. And we are honored to welcome Dan Rather to our broadcast this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Charles. Thanks for having me.
How did it happen that you were in Dallas to begin with?
Well, I had not been with CBS that long, and most of the work I've been doing was covering the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King, and I was head of what passed for our New Orleans bureau. And I had the responsibility of setting up the coverage for the president's trip to Texas. Our White House correspondents, including Bob Pierpoint at the time, were to do the actual broadcasting in the pieces, but I set up our coverage.
And where were you as the limousine passed the Texas School Book Depository?
I was just the other side of the railroad overpass, slightly beyond the School Book Depository. I had posted myself to take a film drop. We had no videotape in those days, and they were to throw the film from the motorcade. Our photographers who'd been taking pictures of it, I was to put it in one of our CBS News grapefruit bags and take it back to our affiliated station, which is only about 4.5 blocks from there. So that's where I was. The motorcade passed by, and it took what I thought was a wrong turn. If you remember, the president's motorcade came through Dallas, and it was supposed to, just after it passed the School Book Depository, pick up speed and go out to the trademark where he was to make a speech. I thought the motorcade took a wrong turn. I thought there was something wrong. I had no idea what had happened. I thought to myself, well, I better get back to the station. I have a feeling something happened here. And I topped the overpass, and when I did, it was that incredible, burned in my memory forever scene of all these people sprawled on the ground, some up running around shouting, "Don't panic," I knew that something had happened. I took one look. I didn't know what had happened, but, you know, my heart was going like an air hammer. And I knew not only had something happened, but something big had happened. So I hightailed it. I don't think Carl Lewis could have beaten me back to our station that day and ran the 4.5 blocks back to the station.
And it was actually there that you found out what had happened.
That's right. I came in and just said, turn up the police radios, get the sheriff's radio up, let's find out what happened. And very quickly, it became clear that shots had been fired at the president's motorcade. First, shots had been fired. Then the report, well, the president's been hit. My God, has he really been hit? And then, incredibly, was perhaps he's been seriously wounded and perhaps even killed. That's when I got on the telephone to Parkland Hospital, because Eddie Barker, whom you'll remember was our news director and one of the great reporters of our time, underestimated, was at the Trade Mart. And he said, listen, they'd taken him to Parkland. And so we got on the telephone with Parkland Hospital right away.
And what did you find out then? I mean, my memory of it is that for long minutes there, you were the only reporter who had given the country the news that the president had died.
Well, this is the way that happened, Charles. We got through to Parkland quickly, and it's a good thing we did, because in this situation, the telephone lines immediately got clogged. And in fairly quick sequence, the switchboard operator at the hospital said she thought the president was dead. She turned me over to a doctor who identified himself as a surgeon, who said he'd been in the emergency room, and he just said flatly, the president's dead. Two priests came there, and the switchboard operator got me in touch with one of the priests, now deceased, but he said the president was dead. And at the Trade Mart, the head of Parkland Hospital told my partner, Eddie Barker, the president was dead. I worked the police beat for over 6 years in Houston, and I knew, working the police beat, a priest, a surgeon, hospital switchboard operator, and the head of the hospital says he's dead. What you've got is a dead man. Now, the government waited for 17 minutes to make the official announcement. And so we wound up broadcasting it 17 minutes before the official announcement. There was a lot of luck involved and a lot of instinct involved.
I was in Los Angeles. It wasn't exactly a Hollywood story, so I had plenty of time to just sit and watch the job you did that day. I was in a state of high emotion a couple thousand miles away, and what impressed me, and I still remember it, is not just how fast you were, but how calm you were able to be. I think I was more emotionally upset than you seemed to be on the scene.
Here's what happened. The kind of laser beam concentration that anybody who's been around the reporting craft very long will recognize. I knew this was a big story. I knew that, you know, in a lot of ways, that my prayers had been answered in the sense of, you know, every reporter's prayers, God, give me the big story. I know you wouldn't want a story of this kind, but a laser beam concentration sort of clicked in. Nothing mattered but the story. The emotional impact hit me like a truck on day 5 or 6, after everybody else had gone through the long weekend, because the story at that moment was what mattered to me. Once it got off my watch, we worked straight through 4 days and nights. Once I was able to get off to myself and think about the enormity of what had happened, then I went through the kind of depression that the country had gone through 3 or 4 days before. But that's what happened. It doesn't happen to you often in a story. But when it happens, it isn't a trance. It is that enormous concentration of, listen, just keep putting one fact in front of the other and one foot in front of the other, and let's do this right, and let's don't make a mistake.
Well, you did it right, and you didn't make a mistake, and thanks for describing to us your role in that, in one of the worst days in the history of this country.
It was the combination, I think, Charles, of the worst tragedy and the worst mystery in a single day in 20th century American history.
And really, the conspiracy theories probably will never die, will they?
I don't think so. A new one flourishes about every other week, it seems to me. And we may never know exactly what happened.
Still big doings around here when the new models come in.
Folks will be coming into my showroom. Make sure we've got what they're after. We listened long and hard. Put together just the cars they said they wanted. Word will get around pretty fast. Always does when it's good news.
GM dealers achieved higher customer satisfaction than any other U.S. automaker, according to a 1988 study by an independent research firm.
Every year I say I'm going to do something about next year's taxes, and every year I don't. Well, I finally did it, and I feel great. I invested in Nuveen. Nuveen income is free of federal tax. With Nuveen, I keep what I earn. So while you can do something about next year's taxes, call Nuveen today. It's not what you earn, it's what you keep.
For information on Nuveen tax-free investments, call your broker or financial advisor or 800-524-6500.
Children don't get private lessons in public schools. Now they can get private lessons at home with Socrates, the complete educational video system that helps your kids learn one-to-one.
With every MCI bill, you not only see how much you saved, you get detailed information on every call from every phone. You can even get accounting codes. Anything less, it's just an AT&T bill.
Until you call, you'll never know how much better a long-distance company can be.
X-Lax presents some gentle guarantees. A feeling of freshness, of confidence, and the peace of mind that comes from the X-Lax guarantee. Taken at bedtime, X-Lax is guaranteed to work gently, effectively, by 8 a.m. or your money back. So you can start the day feeling like yourself again. And that's a promise you can count on. X-Lax, guaranteed complete relief by 8 a.m.
We've been remembering John F. Kennedy this morning and trying to see in the fabric of recent American history the threads of which we can still say, there, that was put there by JFK. It's interesting to speculate what the fabric of history would look like if he hadn't been assassinated. I went to Boston the other day to talk with his old friend, perhaps his best friend, Dave Powers at the Kennedy Library. Dave Powers, who was not, as he said, an advisor to Kennedy, except as to baseball scores in the time of the next appointment, says he knows for a fact, nevertheless, that Kennedy was planning to remove American advisors from Vietnam before the 1964 election, planning not to become further involved in the war which so crippled his successors, Lyndon Johnson and Richard Nixon. If that is so, then the American historical tapestry would look entirely different today, of course. The assassin's bullet killed more than one man in that case. It killed thousands and warped future generations, including our own. We cannot know about that. We can't know what he would have done, only what he did. We're going to conclude with the story of something else he did. The Peace Corps came into being on the day he became president. In his inaugural address, he said, "To those people in the huts and villages of half the globe struggling to break the bonds of mass misery, we pledge our best efforts to help them help themselves." Within a year, young and energetic American volunteers had set out for India, Ghana, Pakistan. I was covering Latin America for CBS News in those days, and I came across those Americans in the back country of Brazil and Chile and Colombia, young American engineers and farmers and doctors, trying to help, not to change the world all at once, but at least to change one little place a little bit by building a footbridge or improving the plowing methods or curing a case of measles. I thought it was at once the most idealistic and the most practical new idea of the time. Well, the Peace Corps is still at work, as Bob Pierpoint is about to report, an identifiable Kennedy thread in the national fabric.
There can be no greater service to our country and no source of pride more real than to be a member of the Peace Corps of the United States.
More than 120,000 Americans have served in the Peace Corps since President Kennedy founded it in 1961. There are about 250 Peace Corps volunteers serving in Guatemala today.
Tal vez lo que debemos hacer es mirar un juego completo.
We work with people, helping people in a very, very direct way. That is something that I think inside everybody would love to be able to do, and we're doing it, and it feels great.
Paul Keeley is 31 years old, a former high school teacher from California.
Peace Corps, joining the Peace Corps for 2 years was always something that I had considered. Then I happened to have met Marta, who had considered the same thing, and it seemed perfect for a couple to do for a couple years.
It was an opportunity to live and to work in another country, and I've always had the desire to help. And it was an opportunity.
Se puede usar solo para el semillero. Si no tiene abono. La brosa, excelente.
Marta and Paul Keeley were married shortly before they joined the Peace Corps. They have been in Guatemala for almost 2 years.
We live in a very small community. We live like they do. And that draws, or that establishes some sort of credibility. And the people here are our neighbors. They're our family right now.
Bueno, muy bien. Nos vemos entonces.
The Keeleys live in the Quiche Indian village of Aldea Nimisak. Their home has only 1 room and no running water.
We've got to us, what seems like a very comfortable house now, although probably wouldn't seem that way to most people in the States. But yeah, we do feel really comfortable here, and we're going to miss it a lot when we leave.
20 miles across the rugged Guatemalan mountains is the town of Momostenango. 3 Peace Corps volunteers live here. Loretta Fung is a Chinese-American architect. She teaches the Indians better design so they can market their weaving products more profitably. Carolyn Such is a 57-year-old widow and the mother of 7. She works with the Indian women, teaching child health care. Douglas Moyer is a 35-year-old agriculturalist and forester.
As you can see, it's pretty well forested here, but you can go outside of here just a few miles and you'll find some pretty serious deforestation. People are cutting a lot of firewood for sale outside of the area. It's got, I think, potential for a real ecological problem here.
The firewood is used to cook the corn and heat the home.
2 centímetros van a ser los 2.5.
The firewood problem is one of Paul Keeley's projects.
Esta pieza aquí podemos hacer de la medida de esta. We've constructed a ceramic cement stove, which is designed to conserve firewood and is also hygienic. Majority of women in the village now cook on the floor, and they're dirt floors normally, so that's not very hygienic. It's an open fire, so it uses a tremendous amount of wood. The stove that we build conserves wood dramatically.
According to official estimates, 80% of the children of Guatemala under the age of 5 are malnourished. That's why Peace Corps volunteers spend so much time teaching proper nutrition and how to grow and prepare the right foods for a better diet.
También vamos a usar la encaparina. Todos ustedes saben la encaparina, ¿verdad? Sí. Muchas veces usa la encaparina para todo. I'm teaching them how to use the resources they have to improve their diet. La encaparina y el protemas y los huevos contienen mucho proteína. They don't eat enough protein. They're lacking in several very important vitamins, particularly vitamin A and iron. And you can see that in the slow growth of children, the infant mortality rate here, and just the general malnourishment rate of children in Guatemala.
You said they don't eat enough protein. Why not?
No resources. Meat is very expensive. Eggs are very expensive. They may eat meat once a week, eggs once a week. And so they have to rely on the vegetable proteins. And they are inexpensive and they are more available to them, but they're not as knowledgeable about how to use them and how to put the different vegetable proteins together.
Para que no se seca los raíces. Los árboles son un poco débil en este momento, ¿no? 90% of the trees we have in the nursery are for planting out into the forest. We produced 15,000 here last year, and of those, 14,000 or so were for reforestation. This year we've started to put more emphasis too into growing fruit trees, fruiting varieties. Hola, Todd.
Todd Sloan first came to Guatemala as a Peace Corps volunteer 7 years ago. He is now the assistant director here, overseeing all the major projects of the volunteers.
I think most of them are realistic, that their impact initially is on a very personal, very local level. We hope that that expands and multiplies, that the people of volunteers touch someone else, and that eventually it will have an impact on a national level.
Almost 9 million people live in Guatemala. Disease and dysentery are constant problems. 2 out of 7 children die before the age of 5, frequently of dehydration. Marta and Paul Keeley instruct the Indians in the mixing of simple ingredients such as sugar, salt, and lime juice in boiled water to combat the effects of dysentery.
Media cucharada, pero bien plano. Yo voy a enseñarles. ¿Ok? No muy colmado. Bien plano, solo así.
Okay? When people come up to us, and this has happened numerous times, and I'm not exaggerating when I say numerous, people come up to us and say, because of what you taught me, for example, oral rehydration, my child was about to die, and I know that that drink that I prepared, that you taught me to prepare and give, my child is alive now. And that's just a wonderful, wonderful feeling. It really is.
Nos vemos pues. Dios. Dios pues, de la mano. Nos vemos.
I hope this spirit will grow, that hundreds of others of young Americans and older Americans will go overseas to show our best side, to show how much we desire to live at peace. There can be no greater service to our country, and no source of pride more real than to be a member of the Peace Corps of the United States.
Why do you take aspirin more than once a week?
Because after one day of tennis, I can have 3 days of aches and pains. But when you take aspirin that often, you wonder about aspirin stomach upset.
Well, today, there's a better aspirin product for you. Try Buffered Bufferin. Better than plain aspirin because it's 100% aspirin plus 3 buffers to help protect against stomach upset aspirin can cause.
You know, it really is better.
Try Buffered Bufferin if you take aspirin more than once a week.
Many people need to cut down on salt for better health.
Instead of salt, use great-tasting Mrs. Dash with 14 natural herbs and spices. Use Mrs. Dash on every dish for zesty, savory flavor. For better health, instead of salt, try Mrs. Dash.
Feel your oats. Post. Oats. Feel your oats with new Post Oat Flakes. Golden toasted flakes with whole grain oat nutrition and whole grain oat taste. Feel your oats with new Post Oat Flakes.
Early in the morning, before the world gets up, I find a little sunshine inside my coffee cup. What better way to start the day with the best of company than the good to the last drop feeling of Maxwell House.
I think he's kind of sweet on you.
I'll see you tomorrow, Val.
To the last drop feeling of Maxwell House.
Bye, Mabel.
As a leader in business solutions, IBM's developed a new computer you can really hang your hat on. The IBM Application System 400. Whether you're in construction, banking, or mining, education, from manufacturing to medicine, retailing to ranching, The IBM Application System 400 can give you specific solutions for your specific business, no matter what hat you wear.
We always try to find a flock of turkeys somewhere on the Sunday morning before Thanksgiving to remind you that not all turkeys are trussed and wrapped in cellophane. Some are strutting around on their own drumsticks in the wild and don't know Thanksgiving from any other autumn day when acorns are on the ground. We found these turkey hens up on Buzzard Roost Ridge in the hill country of Georgia. I'm Charles Kuralt. I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving, and then join us here again next Sunday morning.